everybody, and welcome to this time lapse. Got these lovely juicy cherries in like a turquoisey minty greens fine bone china vase. So working on the pastel mat paper here as always. I do use other papers, but pastel mat seems to be my go-to. I just know this paper so well. I know it's going to give me the finished look that I'm going for. I know I'm going to be able to get details. I know I can build up layers. I know if I make any mistakes that I can correct them. I know I can spray fixative if needed onto this paper, not cause any problems like buckling or anything like that. Like with the Sennelier Le Carte, you touch you touch water to that paper and it literally melts. So I've never tried a fixative, obviously because the fixatives are wet. So anyway, so good old trusty pastel mat for me. Working on the dark grey color here. The size is 17.5 centimeters by 19 centimeters. So it's quite little. I'm really enjoying doing my little paintings at the moment. And one of the things I love about a small painting is to have a really dramatic, thick frame. I just think it adds for such a oldie worldy vibe. I just really love it. So I've done a set of 3 cherries. This is the first one in the series, and they're all going to be framed the same way. A nice thick dark brown with like a gold edging around the actual painting. I don't like my work mounted. The reason for that is, to me, it looks too much like a photograph. It reminds me of a photograph rather than a painting. So I don't mount my work. If you were curious to know, right, let's talk about the painting, shall we? Okay. So for those beautiful juicy reds and very dark plummy colors, plummy violets, I used the Terry Ludwig's Dark Intense 2 set plus some Sennelier. Now, when it comes to painting certain fruits, like any red fruit, my go-to is my Terry Ludwig Dark Intense 2s because they are just so dark, but at the same time, they're so rich. They're not just dead dark colors like a black would be. I do use black to get super dark, but then I'll always put color on top of that. So the Terry Ludwig Dark Intense 2. And I mean, look at those cherries. They're popping, right? That is like due to the pastels. The pastels I'm using, Sennelier, I've got the most beautiful, bright, saturated color. So that is how I managed to get the color of the cherries. Then, of course, just getting that darkness in there. And then when you pop in that highlight, they just come alive. So even I've got a highlight, you can see if you look at the cherry, the black cherry, there on the left hand side, you've got the brighter highlight, but there's also another reflected light just to the left of that. That's done with the dark purple. It's pretty dark compared to, other colors, but it's still bringing some dimension and form to the cherries. And so anyway, that's also from the Terry Ludwig Dark Intense set. It's like an ultraviolet sort of color. So the lovely fine bone china, one of my favorite things to paint, but this one was tricky getting that shape. I found that that was a little bit tricky. So you can see me, I'm measuring. What I do also is sometimes I cut out like a stencil of the shape of the object, and I check my lines and make sure. Spraying some fixative. I'm using the Degas Spectrafix. And to be honest, it doesn't fix it into place like you rub your finger, no pastel comes off. Pastel still comes off, but just not as much. And if you want, you can even go in with multiple layers. What I would recommend, though, is standing at least 40 centimeters away from your work and just giving it a very light spritz. I have done it before where I've just gone ham and sprayed, and the pastel started to run. Obviously, if that's what you want for a first layer and to make something interesting, that's fine. But I definitely didn't want this at this stage. My main reason for using the fixative is I'm wanting that pastel to stick better on the paper, and I'm wanting to get more layers onto the paper. I'm sure I was waffling about something else before I jumped in with the fixative. Oh yes, the shape. Yeah, very, very tricky. So what I did is I went with the base color first, which is the turquoises. Is that a real word? Don't know. And I used also again a mixture of pastels and remembering to get my darks in there. Go darker than you think, because with pastel it's easy to lighten up. I actually even went even darker on the left hand side there, because when you have a look at the reference photo, which you can see here, mine is actually lighter. So after I finished this, I actually did go and make it even darker, just on the left where the bowl is in shadow. I had made it too much in the light. But anyway, these things, you notice some things when you finish your work. It sits on your easel for a day or two. You come back to it and you notice little tweakings that need to take place. For the highlights in this one, I used the Art Spectrum highlight set, which I use quite often. I really, really enjoy that set. It's like a set of 10, and each highlight is tinted a different color. So you've got green, you've got gray, there's a red violet in there, there's a yellow. See, so here I'm on the last crumb of my favorite dark red pastel. It's a Terry Ludwig R180. Literally, I have a crumb left. And sadly, you can't buy them as individual sticks here in the UK. You have to buy a whole box, and they are expensive. So I haven't quite done that yet, but I do need to, because I use that color all the time. Hence why it's just a little crumb. So I always use my pastel pencils somewhere in the painting. They come in so handy for these little thin stems. So I've used a mixture of Caran d'Ache and Carbothello and Faber-Castell. Finishing touches now, bringing in the light onto the table and the highlights onto the cherries as well as the stems. So if you've enjoyed this, you can check out this on my Patreon in real time. I'll leave a link in the description below. But thanks for watching, and bye for now.